Welcome to All Home Care Matters, the show where we discuss all things home care, with discussions on important age-related matters and topics. Brought to you by Enriched Life Home Care Services, the #1 rated home care provider in Michigan by Top Rated Local.
Hello and welcome back to All Home Care Matters. If this is your first time visiting us here at the show, we want to say thank you for taking time out to be with us today. We appreciate how valuable everyone's time is, and that's why we try and make each episode here at All Home Care Matters something that will hopefully matter to you. Today, we are honored to welcome the co-founder of Joe and Bella, the adaptive apparel company, Jimmy Zollo. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. Jimmy, I want to, for our viewers and listeners who may not be familiar with this, and I know there's going to be quite a few, I described it as adaptive apparel, adaptive clothing, and they might be sitting there thinking, what exactly does that mean? What exactly is adaptive apparel and clothing?
Adaptive is very broad. It simply means clothes that are altered that are to make dressing safer or faster or easier or more dignified. And it can be a range of things. So think for children's shoes with Velcro, that's adaptive. Hospital gowns that open up and have a tie in the back, that's adaptive. But for the types of products that we make for older adults living with age-related changes, it's something like this button down, which is one of our products where it looks like a traditional button down. The buttons, however, are fake, and behind it we have magnets. So it's very easy to go on and close back up and allows for one-handed dressing or makes assisted dressing with a care partner far easier and faster.
Absolutely. And I will say on your shirt, I mean, that is a shirt I would wear. It's very stylish and you can't tell the difference, right? I mean, and that may be important to some people, maybe not to others, but what is important with the families we come into contact with, you know, there's loved ones with rheumatoid arthritis, people that have paralysis, either partial or full. It makes it very difficult to change them, to put on a typical shirt or typical pants. And this just helps them to, I feel like it adds dignity to them. So they're not wearing, just a pullover t-shirt that, you had to cut the sides on it and all these other things. And they can still feel, respectable in a way, right? And they can still go out and they're looking like you and I with a nice shirt, nice pants, and clean too, because it's easy on, easy off. You and I have spoken previously, and I just think the story of how Joe and Bella started is fascinating, and it's one I really want to talk about and share because it really touched me as well. Why did you start Joe and Bella? What is the origins of the company?
Well, I would say I never expected to start a clothing or fashion brand. I'm not fashionable. I typically wear a hoodie and jeans. Even wearing a collar right now is very unusual for me, but I was running my first startup, which was a research firm, and also helping to care for my grandparents. My grandmother was living in a memory care community outside of Chicago. She had been living with age-related cognitive changes as well as a wheelchair user. She had 2 hip replacements. And when the pandemic struck, we were locked out of her care community, just like everyone was. And the interesting thing about that experience was it allowed us to have a different lens into her life that we otherwise wouldn't have had. Because typically when I would go visit her, she knew what time I was going to be there. She would be ready for me. She would be expecting me. Her hair would be done. Her makeup would be on. She would be excited to see me. But when lockdowns happened, best case scenario would be I would get a care partner on the phone with FaceTime and she'd be full PPE and she'd be able to run on into my grandmother's room. And hopefully my grandmother was able to talk at that time. And one of the instances, she ran on into my grandmother's room. My grandmother complained about being cold. So the care partner went to go get a sweater. And as she was putting it on, I'll never forget it. It was the first time in my life I ever heard my grandmother swear. She dropped an F-bomb. And it was just reaching her arm back a little bit to try and get it into her sleeve was an excruciating level of pain. And I called up the care partner afterwards. And mind you, she did everything right. She was kind and gentle and patient, but clothes are not designed for a 95-year-old woman who is a wheelchair user who had limited upper body range of motion. And the care partner told me, hey, this is an every time occurrence. Every single time she gets dressed, every single time she changes, she's in that level of pain. And on top of that, she had actually stopped drinking water because the idea of going to the bathroom was so incredibly intimidating that she'd rather deprive herself of, frankly, our most basic need. So I did what I think anyone would do. I went to Google and said, all right, clothing that makes dressing less painful. And I found a couple options that happen to be out there for older adults. Brands that have been around forever. I ordered a few of their products, sent it to my grandmother, and waited. And a few days later, I gave a call back to that same care partner who ran into the room, and she let me know that my grandmother refused to try the clothes on. So I said, Grandma, what's going on? Why aren't you checking out what I got you? It's supposed to be great. It's going to be, you're not going to have to cry when you get dressed anymore. And she goes, it's too ugly. And so this is my grandmother at 95 who's living with unbelievable pain every time she dressed. She'd rather deal with that pain than wear something that is outside of her personal identity. And that really stuck with me. So that was why we started Joe and Bella. The goal is to make clothes that, yes, make dressing faster and less painful and safer, but to do so in a way that is modern and comfortable, and clothes still look really good. So that's our mission, and that's how we got started.
Well, I also want to, if you don't mind, I want to ask too, so viewers and listeners like myself, when we first met and we were speaking, I figured Joe was grandpa and Bella was grandma, but that's not the case.
No, not the case. So the story behind the name is my grandfather had Parkinsonia dementia, and we moved him into a memory care community in 2012. And anyone who's gone through that experience, I think, can understand how tough of a decision that is to make. You're wondering, is it the right time? Is it the right place? Is it the right people? Is he going to have friends? Is the food going to be what he wants to eat? And we probably waited a little bit too long. And he, despite having 24/7 in-home care, it was time to make that change. And we waited last minute. So last minute, in fact, it was Christmas Eve of 2012. And by the time we had finished setting up his room, it was 8 or 9 o'clock at night. There's a skeleton crew left at the community, and we're getting a tour. And I think my whole family was sad and probably moping around and not saying much, and checking out the kitchen and checking out the lobby and all that. And while we're getting this tour, 2 residents jump in line with us. And these folks are having fun with us. I think they could sense that we were not the happiest at that moment to be there. And they brought a levity and joy to that moment that I'll never forget. And that was Joe and Bella. And they ended up becoming part of our family. They came to Mother's Days and Father's Days and Thanksgivings, and they ate every single meal with my grandfather until the day he passed. And they were 2 widowed Holocaust survivors who had met later in life and just were inspirational. And so we named Joe and Bella after Joe and Bella for really 2 reasons. It's look, we want to live up to that legacy, and knowing who they are as people, that anything that we do and put out there cannot ever be less than our best because of who we are naming it after. But the second is really for that moment, that sense of, frankly, relief when we walked out of my grandfather's community that day of, thank God there are people who he's going to enjoy spending time with, people who are going to make him laugh, and people he's going to be comfortable with. And it's that feeling of relief that we want to get across when people find Joe and Bella for the first time, because adaptive apparel is frankly just something that most people don't know about. And so hopefully when you find us for the first time and your loved one tries our products for the first time, you'll feel that sense of relief. And that's what we want to get across.
Yeah, and I think it's such a great way to honor your grandparents' memory, your grandfathers, because of how they touched you guys in a time that you really needed it. And now they're still touching people through you who really need these adaptive apparel items. You know, I'd shared with you maybe 8-10 years ago, I was leading a dementia conference, and there's this lady there. She's healthy, but she's probably in her mid-80s and retired, wasn't doing this for money or anything. And she would always come to these conferences, and she'd bring boxes of these, catalogs. And I never could really figure out what she was doing. So I went and talked to her. She goes, this is the greatest thing that will make the biggest difference in people's lives. And I don't remember the company or anything. And she just, this lady was on a mission to help other seniors and other people with physical limitations to be able to dress stylish and still be able to wear clean clothes. And it was just remarkable. I mean, this lady knew what she was talking about, you know, and she was trying to get other people to listen to her. I don't know whatever happened, but you know, you're now, you know, you guys are doing it with Joe and Bella, and I know it's making a difference. Have you had any feedback from your customers or families or care partners who have just said, where has this been all my life?
We have. It's been really amazing, and it's been a life-changing experience for our whole team, because we will make an order, and typically, I think for most consumer brands who sell products digitally, which for the most part is what we do, you send out the product and never hear back from the customer. We will get long notes back. We will have customers call in and say, hey, I got these products for my dad, and my dad's now able to dress himself again. Or we had one person who purchased our pants for her son who has ALS and is a college student, and it allows him to feel comfortable because he's able to wear good looking pants to school when he goes to classes now. And those sort of stories have really stuck with us and have driven us to continue to improve and continue to motivate us, because we know there's, as good as some of our products are, and we're really proud of them, man, there's so much more we want to bring to market. And so we have a really open dialogue with our customers, and are constantly requesting and asking for feedback about what else can we do? How else can we help? How else, what other sort of products would make your lives easier?
Right. Well, speaking of bringing more product to market, can you share a little bit more about the types of products that you currently have and how they are helping?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with the button down, because that's absolutely most top of mind. But it's just a classic men's button down. Comes in a few different colors, but it uses magnets behind the buttons. We've also enlarged the armhole and dropped the shoulder, which makes that process of reaching back into the shoulder far easier. Then the other big thing we do is the fabric itself is really, really stretchy. So you can kind of see it on this cuff. It just allows for easier dressing. So this is one of the products we're super excited about and really proud about, that is doing really well. We also have a few different types of pants. What's unique about our pants is all of our pants are meant to be worn, or are able to be worn, with an incontinence brief. So 80% of individuals living with dementia will develop incontinence at some point throughout that journey. Incontinence tends to be one of the main reasons why a family would start to move their loved one into a care setting or bring in a professional. And we also saw it as an opportunity where there just weren't a lot of products that were solving this problem. And so our pants are fitted where, if the individual who's wearing the pants has an empty brief or a full brief, the product is nicely hidden so that you can't see what's going on. And so we've added pleats, we've added a fit, and then on top of that, we have a patented 3-zipper design system that will allow for incontinence briefs to be quickly changed without an individual's pants coming all the way off.
Now that's impressive.
Yeah, and it's really great, especially in a care setting. And so if you need a care partner to change, and it saves about 2/3 of the time for a professional to change a brief by using one of our products. We also just have simple things like socks, but we've thought, for example, our socks right here, of course, they've got non-skid on the bottom, use really great stretchy fabric. But two other things that are unique is they're about an inch wider than a traditional pair of socks. So as we age, our feet can tend to be swollen. So adding that extra fit is meaningful. But the other thing is we've added a pull tab here. So whether you're dressing by yourself or whether you're dressing with assistance, it's just something that's small and simple that makes pulling up the sock a little bit easier. But we have now 9 total products to market. We should have it by about 14 to 16 by early next year. And we're taking requests too. So if anyone has any other ideas, please let us know.
Okay. Well, so we've talked a little bit about, facilities and things like that. What makes adaptive apparel important for those who are maybe caring for a loved one in their home?
Absolutely. So there are a few things. The first is, it allows individuals to extend their independence. So the shirt being a perfect example is buttons, as we age, become more challenged, particularly those living with Parkinson's or living with arthritis or other changes that's going to affect our dexterity. So using magnets, using specific fabrics, using specific fits and sizing will allow an individual who's living at home to dress themselves with more ease. Or if they're not able to do that, it allows you to help your loved one get dressed with significantly more ease. There's less tugging and pulling, there's less navigating 10 buttons up. It's just going to really quicken that process. On top of that, being able to look in the mirror and recognize yourself has a deeply meaningful impact on individuals' everyday lives. And I think as we age, clothing tends to be one of the things that doesn't age well with us all the time. And clothing tends to be one of the things that's a little bit unfair about aging. We can't always wear those things that we've always loved. So our goal is to bring products that are those things that folks have always loved, that do remind them of themselves, that do allow folks to look in the mirror and go, yes, that is me. That is something I'm going to wear. I'm not going to be sitting on the couch in a robe or a nightgown all day. I'm going to be wearing something that makes me comfortable.
And like you said, too, I think there's a big psychological benefit to it as well. I mean, I know, if I've ever had to go into the hospital, I had my appendix out. I was there for 3-4 days because it was really infected. And, just wearing that hospital gown for 3-4 days, you just don't have that, feeling of pride. You're holding the back, and it's just, I just think, being able to get dressed in something that you like wearing, you feel good wearing it, and it's easy for you to wear. I think there's a lot of added benefit to that just by itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no question. And I think we saw a lot during the pandemic, was that as folks were more isolated, they weren't always able to dress the way they would dress as if they were going to go out. And when we saw a lot of age-related changes progress at a quicker pace than we had pre-pandemic and really post-lockdown. And I do attribute that to some about how we look and feel about ourselves, not being able to get dressed and look like ourselves every single day. It has a deeply meaningful impact on our everyday lives.
I want to ask real quickly before I ask this next question. Does Joe and Bella have a young adult or a child option?
So our products absolutely work really well for younger adults, not child sizing yet, but hopefully at some point we'll get there. But we believe in what's known as universal design. Okay. So we design our products with the highest level of need, the highest level of acuity in mind. So take my grandmother, for example, who 95-year-old woman, which means really thin, delicate skin. So the fabric has to be soft and gentle and delicate. It's not going to cause rashes or tears or infections. It also means the way in which the products are sewn aren't going to create pressure points. Then the fit's got to be perfect. Then it's got to be uniquely applied because she was a wheelchair user. So the way the pants have to be really specific. The way we would put zippers or magnets or straps have to be really specific. And the way in which those are accessible to a 95-year-old's hands and allowing her to be able to do that herself is a really specific challenge. But our belief is if we can solve that problem for someone like my grandmother, 95, living with cognitive change, who's a wheelchair user with limited mobility, and create a great solution for her, that same design is going to be fantastic for a younger adult as well. So that's the goal, is make great, beautiful products that can help as many people as we possibly can.
Awesome. So I noticed on the website when I was looking through it, you talk about self-dressing and assisted dressing. Now, for somebody that might be listening or watching this, explain the difference, exactly what you guys mean by that.
Yeah, so self-dressing is what you would expect. So it's someone who still has the ability to dress themselves, or would still have the ability to dress themselves if they were to have the right setup of adaptive apparel. So someone with Parkinson's who is able to use our magnetic button down, or able to use a pair of our pants that have unique pulls, that is a form of self-dressing products. We also have what's known as assisted dressing. So products that are meant for individuals who absolutely cannot dress themselves. They will need assistance regardless of the level of adaptive features that we put into our products. So for example, We have open back tops, which they go on like a hospital gown. So they go on and close in the front, but they're cleverly designed where you can't see the closures. They fully close in the back. They avoid pressure points, but it just makes the life of both the individual who's wearing it a whole lot more dignified because you're not wearing a hospital gown. It goes on way faster. It looks really good, and it makes the job of the care partner far easier as well. So you're not struggling to try and get something over somebody's head who might not be mobile or might be living with pain if you're trying to dress them in that way.
Right. Now, you guys, started this and, because of your grandmother, and, you've evolved. And how long has Joe and Bella been around now?
So we're still really new at this. We've only been around for about 2 years. We came out with our first products in 2022. And in the last 3 months, we've released 6 of our 9 products. So we're just getting out there. We're just bringing these new products to market, and it's been a really, really amazing, beautiful ride so far.
Well, I know we've kind of touched on this earlier, but what have been some of the reactions to your new products for those who have been using them?
It's been fantastic. So for things like our adaptive pants that are meant to be used with incontinence products, it's our pant called CareZip. We have over an 80% repurchase rate on that product, which is just fantastic. So if someone comes in and gets a CareZip to test it out, pretty much they're coming back to try it again. So that one speaks for itself. Our reviews on Google are all 5 stars so far. It's been pretty remarkable, and we've also seen folks reaching out to us about, hey, can we partner with you in different unique ways? So we're now up on QVC, who has reached out. Walmart, we're in discussions with Walmart and several other big brands as well, and it's been really exciting.
That's amazing, Jimmy. That's just absolutely amazing. So I want to kind of go back to, you were not in fashion design or clothing or apparel. I can't imagine what the curve must have been in the education that it had taken to get to where you're at, and we'll say, successfully gotten to where you're at. I mean, what was that whole process like? And, did your wife say, what are you thinking of? Like, walk us through that story.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. And by the way, when I decided to do this, not only was it during the pandemic, my wife at the time was pregnant with our first. So that was that definitely threw her for a loop. But yeah, my background, I'm a startup person. So I started my career at GrubHub in Chicago, which has grown to be one of the most successful startups ever out of this city, especially on the consumer side of things. From there, I launched my first business, which was a marketing research consultancy, and it was really fun, interesting work. We worked with brands like Reebok to the NBA, but our most important work was with AARP, and we ran an annual project with them looking at the future of aging within the US. So looking at aging, understanding aging has always been a passion of mine, both professionally and personally. And through that work, a few things became obvious. The first was, hey, 10,000 Americans are turning 70 every single day. 2/3 of whom have a disability. 2/3 of that number have multiple disabilities. And by 2033, there are going to be more Americans over the age of 65 than below the age of 18 for the first time ever in this country. So, this country's at a really challenging moment where private businesses, frankly, need to step up and create products and services that are going to make the lives of older adults easier. And those brands that do it well are going to have an unbelievable opportunity for success, just based upon the absolute need for this country, because we will not have enough people to care for the people that are aging right now in this country. And we can look at other countries like Japan, especially to see how that is going, hopefully learn from their experiences. So when I chose to make this move, I felt a little bit crazy because I knew a lot about aging and longevity in this country. I knew absolutely nothing about fashion and apparel. So my first mission was, I need to find someone who knows a lot about fashion and apparel. So I don't have to be the one making fashion and apparel decisions.
Right.
And I was really fortunate to find a woman. Her name's Kara Sumpton. She was early on at Lululemon, and she designed for Figs. She designed the launch line in several years for Figs, which is a great brand for nurses and doctors. And Kara is she's a hot commodity. She's a really well-known, respected apparel designer. And Kara was probably going to say no to working with us because she was so busy, so sought after. And she was getting ready to say no. We had a call coming up. But the day before her call, it was her grandmother's 95th birthday. And she bought her grandmother something that she couldn't put on. And had it not been for that moment, I think Kara was going to say no to us. But that changed everything. And now Kara has gone on to say that her work with Joe and Bella is amongst the most important of her life. And she's working to really transform, frankly, the apparel landscape as we know it. And I'm eternally grateful for the work that Kara has done, the passion that she has put behind these products, because she's just tremendously passionate about it and talented and knows so much more than I do about apparel. And I've been leaning on her. The second opportunity that we had was we're working with a few advisors who know apparel far better than I do, one of whom is Paul Blum, who's the former CEO of Kenneth Cole, David Yurman, and Juicy Couture. And Paul's been fantastic from helping us on the branding side. The other is supply chain is really, really tricky, especially now, even though it's getting better, but it's always going to be a challenge. But there's a woman named Chitra Balrati, and Chitra is currently the CCO at Glossier. She was former CEO at Therese, and she's been just fantastic in helping me work through those supply chain challenges and think through the business from an operational standpoint to make sure that we have the right products at the right time and we can get them to everyone when they need them and when they order them, which has absolutely been a learning curve, but we're excited about where we're at from an operation standpoint as well.
That's amazing. I want to go back to this when she was about to say no, and she saw the benefit with her grandmother, and I feel like not related to clothing, but I talk to people all the time around the world who are dealing with dementia and all these different things, and my biggest thing, Jimmy, and it kind of crosses over to this experience, doctors, politicians, people who haven't been directly touched by the issue don't have the same heart or, passion towards it because it hasn't directly affected them yet. And I feel like it's going to take those types of people to have a direct family member or loved one get touched by like a dementia, Alzheimer's, to really now get some skin really in the game and say, okay, we need to do something to support these, millions of families across the world with this disease. I think the same thing applies with like this story here with her, and, had her grandmother not had a birthday party or she didn't buy her an outfit and she couldn't put it on, you just stop and like, wow, how would that have changed the trajectory of Joe and Bella? So, that's wonderful. And I think,
yeah, you're absolutely right. It's that shared experience amongst this community that is allowing us to. We really talk about how we're punching above our weight class when it comes to finding someone like Kara, or frankly, being on your show. It's that story that ties us together. We like to say, for those who are lucky, they've had a Joe or Bella in their life, whether that's a grandparent, a parent, or maybe just the neighbor down the street. It's someone who has touched their lives, who's been deeply impacted by age-related changes, and anyone who has gone through that recognizes how hard it can be emotionally, physically, and we've been fortunate to find folks that have gone through that and want to support us, and we're grateful that we found Kara at the right time.
That's amazing. Let's talk about, this. I'm putting myself in your shoes, and I'm imagining going to my wife when we're expecting our first child and saying, I'm leaving my stable, secure, established career and going out a very small branch here that may not hold my weight, and we're going to start a whole new company. What was your wife's reaction? I know you said she was surprised, but was there a discussion?
She said, go do it. I'm really blessed to have a wife who anytime I come up with a crazy idea, she's in my corner. So she like me, she loves the startup world, and that's part of what built our relationship. So when I met her, I was at GrubHub and she was at a very corporate job. And I would come home after work saying, "Oh my God, you won't believe what we did today at GrubHub. It was amazing." And she would come home stressed. And then because of that sort of dynamic, she said, "You know what? I want to get into the startup world." And she went to a startup called Trunk Club out of Chicago. And then she went to another startup in Chicago called Mac and Mia. And that's just been a shared passion of ours. And I'm fortunate that she's been in our corner. And frankly, she's done a lot behind the scenes and in front of the scenes too to help get this. I think whenever there are color choices or design choices, I go to her. When there are she's a brilliant brander and marketer herself, and she's been really, really helpful when it comes to supporting her and supporting our vision and our dream. And I'm very, very fortunate to have someone like that who just says, go for it.
That's
Especially
awesome.
now, we have two now, so more than ever.
That's awesome. It sounds like we have similar wives. That's for sure. So that's awesome. So for you, Jimmy, what's been one of the most surprising or biggest joys throughout this journey so far? Because I'm sure there's going to be plenty more for you.
Man, there have been so many, but I'll give you one of the biggest surprises that led to a joy, which was it was really hard to find older adult models. And it maybe it shouldn't have been a surprise, but it was to me how hard it was. So we had our first pair of pants ready to go. We needed to do a photo shoot so people could see what they look like, how they were used. And we had free studio space out in California and a photographer that was going to do us a deal to take the shoot. And I called up every single modeling agency in California saying, "Hey, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. We need older adults." And they said, "Great, I've got just the person for you. I'll send you some models in your email soon." I'd go check my inbox, and I would have pictures of 25 and 30-year-olds running on the beach, shirtless, as if that was the direction we were going for. And yeah, so our first photo shoot, we were able to find a few folks because we DM'd them on Instagram. They were not professional models. But it wasn't at all representative of who we're trying to help and how our products help. So it forced us to get creative, and I got lucky. I met an individual. His name's Tom Sanders, who is well known now in senior housing, but he got his start being a photographer of World War II veterans, and he's got some published work on World War II veterans that's just amazing, beautiful work. But World War II veterans started moving on into senior housing. And so he almost flipped into being this World War II specialist to a senior housing specialist. And he's got an exhibit now at Midway Airport in Chicago. He's got a few published beautiful books. But I connected with Tom, and he connected me to the folks over at Belmont Village in Chicago. And they agreed to open their doors for us. And if you go to Joe and Bella now, all of our models are folks from Belmont Village, 12 of them. So 12 residents from, yep, they're right there. So that's Roger and Paula. Is just an amazing experience. We had 12 models, average age 88. Half were walker or wheelchair users. A few were living with cognitive change, and it ended up being this amazing experience. And a couple quick stories from it is, the first is when we went to go do this photo shoot, and also we had a fashion show the last day. There was a lot of hesitancy from who would be our models as well as their families. In fact, there's one woman, Joanne, who said, "Hey, why would a fashion brand be coming here? Why would they want me to be their model? Or are they doing this to make fun of me? Is this a joke?"
Right.
She, in no realm did she think it was possible that, "No, Joanne, we think you're beautiful, and we think you as a model is aspirational and representative of the brand that we want to be." And we spent a lot of time with the folks there, and it ended up being just this beautiful experience. So Joanne ended up being a star for us. Her photos were beautiful, and we brought in a makeup artist and hairstylist and Tom to shoot the thing. And I remember the first time we showed her a few of the shots, she couldn't believe it, and she was crying joy. And Joanne's husband had passed, I think, 2 weeks prior, and it was this really beautiful moment. The other guy who you had on the cover, Roger, really wasn't into the idea of doing a photo shoot at first. He Vietnam vet, really amazing guy, doesn't like to participate in a lot of activities. But after the first day, we came back for our second day of the shoot, and we're going through our wardrobe, and we're missing a couple items here. We're missing all of Roger's stuff. Well, it turns out Roger liked the first day so much, he snuck down early the second day to go grab his stuff so he can get ready early because he wanted to be a part of it. Then the last day of the event, we held a fashion show for all the residents, and their families came out. There are a few hundred people there. It was just this unbelievable, joyous event that transformed how we think about what we're doing. Right. To be on the ground there and to see the emotion of the individuals wearing the clothes, of their families, of their grandchildren that they were FaceTiming or texting pictures of. It was beautiful, and it was the most impactful moment of all of our professional careers, and it's something that we think about often, and hopefully we're going to do in different ways coming up here soon.
Let me ask: have you? Is Belmont that's a different facility than your grandfather and Joe and Bella were at? Have you gone back to that facility?
I have. So they've been fantastic as well. So they were at a Kelch community. One called Northbrook Inn, which is amazing. Northbrook Inn, their director over there of the community is actually on an advisory board for us, and they're a short drive for me. And so they've helped us in several different ways, and I'll give you a few. The first is we'll do about quarterly interviews with professional care partners and say, hey, here's some things that we're thinking about. Here's some products that we're thinking about. Would this make your life easier? Would this make dressing harder? What are we missing? What don't we understand? And then when we go through the process of actually developing the apparel, Northbrook Inn played a really meaningful role. So we would get our prototypes, and typically we would need anywhere from 1 to 5 prototypes to get the product right. Typically, I mean, 3 to 5. We'd never get it right the first time. And we would bring those products on into Northbrook Inn, where my grandmother had lived, and they would test them out, and they would get us feedback. And even Jen, who's the executive director, she would wear the clothes herself to see what it was like. So Northbrook Inn and the Kelch communities have just been amazing partners and advocates, and have been through with us all along this journey. And man, am I grateful for them and their team. I don't know how Kelch does it, but they hire some just fantastic people.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So here up on the screen and in the show notes, Jimmy, we're going to have the website to Joe and Bella. What would you like to tell viewers and listeners on the best way to reach out to you guys?
Yeah, if you want to check us out, please go to joeandbella.com. If you want to reach out to me personally, you can always email us at hello@joeandbella.com, and we'll get back to you typically within 24 hours or sooner. And you can always follow us on social too. So we're on Instagram at Hello Joe and Bella. We're on Facebook. You just look up Joe and Bella, you'll find us there. We are on TikTok and as well, if any of your viewers are into TikTok. But please reach on out and let us know what you think and how we can help. If you have any ideas, and frankly, if you want to share your story, we want to hear it. So please feel free to reach out. We would love to talk to you. We would love to know how we can help.
And I just want to add, I mean, you guys are great people, and one thing that really, kind of drew and connected me to you was, your story, though it's different, it's similar to ours. And I just think it's important for people who have lived it and have gone through it, and they have that personal story and connection to it. I mean, I think everything you say, everything you're doing, it's all coming from the heart, right? I mean, like I said, you had a great career in marketing and all this other stuff. You didn't need to start a clothing company, right? But you're doing it because you believe in it. You're making a product that is of high quality, but it's also making an impactful difference in the lives of the care partners and these loved ones that they're caring for. Just a couple more questions, Jimmy, because I know how busy you are, and I want to thank you so much for your time today. When you look at our society and you look at, advertising, you look at, products and even, vehicles and all these things, I think there's a very strong hint of ageism in all of it, right? I mean, you're coming from the marketing profession. You know what the demographic is for advertising, who you're trying to reach, not the 70 plus crowd or even the 65 plus crowd. Why do you think all these other, well-known, I'll say mainstream clothing brands, why wouldn't they have a line for their customers of items like this?
Yeah.
What is your thought on that?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And frankly, you hit it. It is ageism. It is. I think when folks think older adult plus fashion at some of these major apparel brands, they have a bias in place, and I'm sure those biases are subconscious. But I think when they think, hey, what's hip, what's cool, even for brands that maybe their average buyer is over the age of 65, they're still trying to create brands that or create products that are more traditional and aren't necessarily solving some problems. And I'll give you a quick example about how this bias has played out in a different way. So we went through a bit of a fundraising process to get Joe and Bella off the ground. And I had met with a really prominent investor. One, if I had said their name, I'm sure a significant portion of the audience would recognize, so I won't do that. And I thought they were pretty interested in what Joe and Bella was building. And near the end of the call, the investor says, hey, I like what you're doing, but I'm concerned about your LTV. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm concerned about the long-term value, the lifetime value of your customer. And I knew what he was getting at, but I wanted him to say it. So I asked him, I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, your customers are going to die pretty soon. And this is a guy who has invested in multiple products for babies. So I politely let him know, hey, just so you know, someone with Parkinson's, someone with dementia, someone with other age-related changes can live for a long time and have a fantastic, meaningful life at that later stage. And by the way, someone's going to be an older adult for a far longer period of time than they are going to be for a baby. So those biases exist that are so strong, that are so ingrained in the society, that we can look at this basic fact of, well, we're going to be over the age of 75 for far longer than we're going to be the age of 1. Yet we still can't make that decision to invest and support brands that are looking to serve this audience. So the way to change that, frankly, is by going out and being really successful. And there are a lot of brands and companies that you featured on your show that are making great products or services for older adults. And the more of those companies that pop up and are successful and change the narrative about where investors should focus, where large brands should focus, is going to help everybody. And that's what we're trying to do.
That's awesome. And I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, this investor, and then 6 months later, if he bought his mother or grandmother, a piece of clothing, that's an example of, I think it just is going to take it directly affecting him in some way for then the light bulb to go off and say, you know what, if this is happening to me, it's happening to millions of others out there too. But, it all worked out for the best though, right?
Right. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah. So last question. I like to ask our guests this, who are doing just, remarkable things. Nothing proprietary, nothing confidential, only what you want to share. If I talk to you in the next 5 years, 3 years, what's next and exciting coming with Joe and Bella?
There's so much. Let me think about what I can say. So in the near term, we are going to have our site updated. We brought on a really great creative designer who's going to help us better communicate both the utility and the emotion behind what we're doing, which I think is really tricky to do, because there's a lot of education that has to go on at the same time. And when we lean into the education aspect, we lose some of that emotion of the brand. So you be on the lookout for an updated site. But we're bringing a lot of new products to market. A few that I can talk about: we have a woman's button-down blouse that's going to be coming out probably by Q1. We're going to have a really great sleepwear line for women that's coming out as well. We're probably going to be coming out with shorts by next summer. So we're going to have a nice wider range of products. And the other thing is we want to make sure that our products are accessible. So we really need to live by that standard that we're portraying. So for folks that don't know Joe and Bella and maybe they don't shop online, so how do we make sure you can find our products as easily as possible and get them to the person that most needs them? So partnering with folks like QVC and Walmart will hopefully drive that forward. So be on the lookout for us all over the country. But for now, check us out on Joe and Bella, and yeah, we're excited about what's to come.
That's wonderful, Jimmy. Well, I just want to say thank you for your time today, and I want to say thank you for doing something that has so much meaning to you that's going to help so many other people. I think it's going to be successful because you're doing this with your heart first, and it comes across in every time we've spoken, and just even in looking at the catalog here you sent. And any way we can help support you guys, we'll be there for you. And hopefully we can talk again when you're on all these store shelves.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And this platform that you have is incredibly meaningful to so many. So thank you for doing this, and hope to talk soon.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us today here at All Home Care Matters. All Home Care Matters is here to help families as they navigate these long-term care issues. We invite you to visit us at allhomecarematters.com, where there's a private, secure, fillable form where you can give us feedback or show ideas. Every form is read and responded to. And remember, you can listen to the show on any of your favorite podcast streaming platforms, or watch the show on our official YouTube channel. Just make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. We'd also like to say thank you again to Jimmy Zollo, the co-founder of Joe and Bella. We look forward to seeing you next time here at All Home Care Matters.
Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to you joining us again on another episode of All Home Care Matters. To learn more about the show and to connect with us, visit us at allhomecarematters.com.